Okay, great. Welcome everybody to the Bellevue City Council meeting for November 9th, 2020. And Wednesday is Veterans Day. And I just want to say that a big thank you to every veteran in Bellevue and in our country, because those who live in freedom will always be grateful to those who help preserve it. So thank you very much. And I want to give a special shout out to a Bellevue resident that I was happy to meet last year, Captain Louise Potterman, Captain of the U.S. Air Force. It's just an honor to have her a resident in Bellevue. And so thank you to her and to all our veterans. Okay, City Clerk, can you please do the roll call?
Sure. Mayor Robinson.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse.
Here.
Councilmember Barksdale.
Here.
Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Robertson.
Present.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
And Councilmember Zahn.
Here.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Neuenhouse, could you please lead us in the flag salute?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, agenda is approved. I forgot to vote. Okay, Charmaine, do we have some oral communications?
Yes, thank you. This evening there are 3 speakers signed up, and the first speaker is Paul Bruno. Mr. Bruno, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. Your time begins now.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Robinson and Bellevue City Council members. My name is Paul Bruno, and I live at 369 101st Avenue, Southeast in Bellevue, Washington, and thank the council for this opportunity this evening to comment on the environmental stewardship plan. I'm a retired Bellevue resident, proud parent and grandparent, and I truly appreciate the hard work the council and the program staff have put into the draft environmental stewardship plan. It covers important areas, but I must say I'm concerned the plan is not strong enough, and I'll give a little explanation. In 2018, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change delivered a special report that makes it perfectly clear that we need to cut emissions in half by 2030 to avoid a runaway climate change catastrophe that will continue for generations. As the graph on page 37 of the Environmental Stewardship Plan shows, our largest single factor or sector, of carbon emissions is from energy use in residential and commercial buildings, which together account for 47% of emissions. Please strengthen the plan, especially the energy section, which addresses buildings where nearly half of our greenhouse gas emissions emanate. In addition, on pages 120 and 121 of the plan, it says it will be evaluated and updated on a 5-year cycle. This might make sense for other city plans, but for the environmental stewardship plan, 10-year mark of 2030 is going to be critical. We have to reduce emissions much faster than the 6.4% reduction of the past almost 9 years, and waiting 5 years to evaluate is too long. If we discover, say in 2025, that we're behind our targets, we will not be able to recover and we will face life-threatening outcomes. We need to do an evaluation every year as our emissions data comes in, asking ourselves whether we are on track for our targets, and if not, we must take immediate actions. So please shorten the timeline for the evaluation of the environmental stewardship plan from 5 years to 1 year. A livable climate is essential for our future, and especially for our young people. and the 2030 target is imperative. Please ensure that Bellevue proposes the required climate action in our environmental stewardship plan. And thank you again for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you. The second speaker this evening is Jennifer Keller. And Ms. Keller, can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Your time begins now.
Okay, my name is Jennifer Keller, and I live in Lake Hills at 115 146th Avenue Southeast. I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and also thank you for all your hard work this year. I know you've been taking on some really tough challenges. I'm a longtime Bellevue resident, and I love how green and beautiful our area is, and I want to protect our climate, especially for the sake of our young people. I'm a member of People for Climate Action Bellevue, but I am communicating for myself today. And I want to thank you for the draft update to Bellevue's Environmental Stewardship Plan, which I understand you'll be talking about next week. What a moment we're in. There's the presidential election, which means we can get back into the Paris Climate Accords, setting a context for our important local work on climate change. There's the pandemic and many other things. All of it brings a lot of uncertainty, but on the other hand, this is a crucial time for our city to create the strongest climate action plan we possibly can. When we build back from the current economic setbacks, we must build back better with greater equity, cleaner energy, greater efficiency in our buildings and transportation. Planning for that now can help us accomplish it when it's feasible. Paul mentioned the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report really emphasizes it's not just a matter of, oh, well, if we make it by 2030, our 50% reduction by 2030, or if we make it by 2040, it's really important that we really make it by 2030. So I really appreciate the draft update of the Environmental Stewardship Plan, which is well organized and includes a variety of good ideas. At the same time, I want to speak up for certain improvements to the plan. As Paul mentioned, the cycle for evaluation and update really needs to be shortened from that 5-year evaluation cycle. We can't catch up if we get behind. So we do need to be looking at that emissions data annually. And I would really like to see more firm action. I see a lot of phrases in the plan like evaluating effectiveness, pilot programs, reviewing opportunities. Also, I see mentions of programs without much indication of the target or scope of those programs. So I think we could look at those places and ask ourselves, can't we commit to something stronger than that? Maybe using ideas from existing climate action lists designed for cities to use, or at least move quickly from evaluation to action. This strengthening is especially needed in the section called energy. Paul mentioned that. That's the one that covers energy and buildings. We can create an environmental stewardship plan that truly aims for sustainability. Sustainability, meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of our young people and future generations to meet their own needs. Please ensure Bellevue aims for strong, leading-edge climate action in our environmental stewardship plan. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final speaker signed up this evening is Barbara Chevalier. And Ms. Chevalier reached out earlier today and has a PowerPoint to share. So I will be sharing that and we'll be tracking her 3 minutes separately. Ms. Chevalier, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you. Let me pull up your PowerPoint. Okay, your time begins now.
All right, so good evening, Mayor Robinson and council members. My name is Barbara Chevalier. I live in Newport Hills, and I wanted to introduce you this evening to a new nonprofit that I chair called 300 Trees. Next slide, please. We seek to increase Bellevue's urban tree canopy by building relationships, securing funding, and leveraging community interest to plant and protect trees. We want to help bring Bellevue to that 40% tree canopy coverage as soon as possible for both the health of our city and our planet. Next slide, please. We have already begun our work with a free tree giveaway of almost 50 trees this fall, over 50% more than we had originally planned. The green pins here on this map show where these trees were planted. Our goal is to plant throughout the city, focusing particularly on neighborhoods that have a lower tree canopy. Equity is really important to us. Next slide, please. We have started taking orders already for our 2021 spring giveaway, and we have already received requests for 50 trees. We hope to grow that to at least 100 over the next few months and bring our total number of trees planted to 300 or more by this time next year. Over that same time period, we will establish either our own tree growing operation or create a relationship with a local nursery to grow trees specifically to meet our needs as we scale up towards several thousand trees per year over the next few years. Next slide, please. To support these really ambitious goals, we have a new website that we encourage everyone to visit at 300trees.org. That's 300trees.org. We ultimately envision 300 Trees fostering robust public-private partnerships that can bring together the talents and ideas of government officials, residents, local organizations, and businesses. We've already been in communication with the city's environmental stewardship program, Bellevue College, and students at ENACT, the Sammamish High's Environmental Club. We are applying for funding through the Washington Department of Natural Resources and private grant-making organizations so that we have the financial resources to scale our tree planting work. We eventually want to expand that work into schools, multifamily housing complexes, and maybe even highway medians. We plan to create novel technological solutions, replicate innovative programs from other parts of the country and the world, and leverage the best of social media to make a 40% urban tree canopy a reality. Next slide, please. So I would urge the council to be bold in supporting the environmental services plan in general and tree planting in particular. We'll be reaching out to you individually soon to learn more about your ideas and vision for Bellevue's tree canopy. And we look forward to working together to build a tree-focused coalition that can green Bellevue's neighborhoods, streets, schools, and parks for many years to come. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening.
Thank you. And that is the end of the registration list. If there is anyone connected to this meeting that would like to provide oral communication that did not sign up, please use the raised hand function. If you're connected with a phone, that would be *9. And Mayor, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Miyake, would you like to give a city manager report, please?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Robinson and council members. I have 2 items to share with you under the manager's report this evening. And the first one is on winter weather preparedness. And as you know, it's that time of year where we begin messaging to our residences and businesses how the city is preparing for the forecasted inclement weather. Joining us this evening is Chris Long, Assistant Director in our Transportation Department, to provide an overview of how the city is preparing for the winter and how we are adjusting to our practices during this time of COVID. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris.
Thank you, City Manager Mayor Robinson and Council. Thank you for having me here tonight. So I'm going to talk about 3 main things here. We're going to go over how we've prepared for this winter, the training that we've done, and what is new for the winter of 2020-2021. So looking at the forecast for this year, it looks to be a La Nina year. And what that means for us is that it typically amounts to a slightly more precipitation than we have in past years with slightly colder temperatures. So with that forecast in hand, we do use that to kind of get ourselves geared up and prepared. But at the same time, we prepare for these storms no matter what type of season it is. And we start that preparation in the summer. So this summer we went through and we serviced all our plows and sanders to make sure that they were ready for this winter. We also stocked up all our solid and liquid de-icing materials so that all our stores are ready for this winter as well. And then we kicked off our training this year in October, but it was done a little differently than we typically do. Last thing I want to mention is that when it comes to winter weather preparedness is we're looking at not just snow, but also ice, floods, and wind events. And with the completion of our training in October, I can now say that we are officially winter weather ready as of November 1st. So on the topic of training, typically when we do our training, it's done in a large lecture hall setting. We have 150 staff across the transportation, parks, utilities, and finance and asset management departments that participate in the annual training. And they do breakout sessions and work on different elements, but that just wasn't going to work this year under COVID conditions. So our staff within transportation, utilities, and human resources put their heads together and came up with a training program that could all be done online to prepare our staff for this coming winter season. The program online is only about an hour and 15 minutes. And under our current COVID work schedules, all of our staff have a training specific day every other week. So they were easily able to get through all of these items and go back and double check items as well, just to be sure that they were ready for this season. So quickly looking back at last season, we had one major snow event last year that lasted about 5 days. And we felt that it was a very effective response. We were able to get fire and police to all emergency calls. We expanded our external communications. We're up to 11,000 subscribers to our emergency weather text and email alert system. But there were a couple things we learned from this system. And the main one, from that storm, the main one was the need to be able to break through ice that builds up over time on some of our neighborhood streets. Years ago, we used to only use steel plows, and then we migrated to rubber tip plows to better preserve our pavement and our pavement markings. But we found that we just could not get through the ice after this last storm. So we've now outfitted ourselves with 5 steel plow bits that sit in the Eastgate yard and are ready to tackle those tough hills of South Bellevue if we get another one of those icy storms. Next 2 items on this list I'm going to cover in the next slides. The first one is our new automated vehicle locating system. And this is a technology that our fleet staff was able to deploy on 24 of our winter weather trucks that allows us to locate plows while they're on their plow routes and determine their progress, and to be able to use that location information to determine which plow operators should respond to an emergency that might be going on one of the roadways. With this information, our ultimate goal is to get to where we can provide our residents with a map that shows which roads have most recently been plowed, because that's the number one call we get in during a storm, is whether the road just outside their neighborhood has been plowed. So our goal is to have that map up and running in the winter of 2022. The last item I'm going to cover is our new traveler information webpage. So this is something that we've done, not necessarily specifically for winter weather, but we've updated this site to now have a camera. Well, by the end of next year, we'll have cameras on this site at almost every traffic signal in Bellevue. But the key difference that we now have is we're showing full motion video on this site. So now during a snowstorm, our residents can sit back and watch the snowfall on every corner of Bellevue during a big event. So with that, concludes my presentation, and we are looking forward to not having snow this winter, but in the event that we do, we'll be ready. Thank you very much.
Great presentation, thank you. And then what's the next one, Mr. Miyake? Oops, I can't hear you yet.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I have one item. The second item is a good news story about an award we recently received from the state chapter of the American Planning Association for the great work and process used for the Wilburton Commercial Area Study. And joining us this evening is Emil King, Assistant Director in our Community Development Department for presentation. Emil?
Thank you, City Manager Miyake. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and members of Council. It's my pleasure to report to you that the City of Bellevue, in association with NBBJ Consultants, was recently recognized with an award for excellence in planning. The Planning Association of Washington and Washington chapter of the American Planning Association Joint Awards Program for 2020 selected the Wilburton Commercial Area Study in the large jurisdictions category. This is for cities above 40,000 in population or counties above 60,000 in population. We were one of 7 award recipients across the categories. A virtual award ceremony occurred on October 30th with fellow planning professionals from across the state. The Wilburton Visioning was a team effort that involved a broad range of people from the community, city officials, a range of consultants, and staff, both past and present. Next slide, please, Charmaine. The Wilburton Commercial Area Study was the visioning effort for transit-oriented development in the light blue area shown on this map. Wilburton is a key part of the city's transit growth corridor. The city has made a concerted effort over the years to plan for mixed-use urban neighborhoods that are highly walkable, have a range of mobility options, and complement one another. Bell Red was adopted by council in 2009, Downtown Livability adopted in 2017, and work on East Main Code is in its final stages. Next slide, please. The Wilburton area is about 310 acres in size. The starting point for analysis was very interesting. The Wilburton area has a rich history as the city's auto row, a big box retail destination, a railroad corridor, and as a location for Japanese American farming in Bellevue as well. Wilburton benefits from its proximity to adjacent growth areas, the regional freeway system, park and open space amenities such as the botanical gardens and future light rail stations. It's also a key segment of East Rail and the eastern terminus of the Grand Connection vision. Next slide, please, Charmaine. The awards jury that selected Wilburton was very impressed with the comprehensive nature of the outreach program that included a technical committee, a citizens committee, and a property owners group, adding depth to the feedback the project team received. Next slide, please. The CAC mapping exercise to look at different land use scenarios was especially impressive as well. The examples shown on the screen were wide-ranging and all very thoughtful. They were distilled into a refined set of alternatives for further review and discussion. Next slide, please. On the screen is the CAC's overall massing for the preferred alternative. The CAC's final report provides great guidance for further work on Wilburton implementation. In closing, it's great for the city to be recognized for planning efforts like Wilburton. Staff are currently in the final stages of work on other city priority projects. Once they're complete, we'll be coordinating with city leadership to continue with the technical analysis and community engagement to build upon and implement this strong vision for Wilburton.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. I know that Councilmember Stokes was mayor at the time. Then he formed this CAC that worked on this plan. And I know that Councilmember Barksdale was appointed onto the CAC. So I wanted to give Councilmember Stokes an opportunity to speak to this.
Okay, thank you very much. And make sure I'm off mute. Yeah, this is really, really exciting to get this award and to also know we're moving this forward. The visioning effort was, I think, a step up from what we've done in a lot of other places, and having a technical group as well as having the business and residents there is really effective. You know, I was mayor in 2017 when this came up, and it was very exciting. And the CAC brought together representatives from the Planning Commission, Councilman Barksdale at that time, Transportation Commission, Parks and Community Services, Arts Commission, which I was very proud they were included, and Human Services Commission, in addition to other businesses and resident representatives. You know, Wilburton is going to be a great complement to our growth, to our plans and how we're working with downtown and Bell Red. The fascinating thing is Wilburton has grown from a community at one time that was basically a big sawmill, a lot of people working there. And it's changed to be a very vibrant part of Bellevue. And all connected with the east side and the downtown. And So this is fantastic. The vision includes a much more transit-oriented mix of uses, healthy living, support economic vitality, and another thing I'm very excited about and been involved in is East Rail, which will be a key defining feature for this new urban neighborhood. So I'm looking forward to the next steps to develop the policy and code provisions in Wilburton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes, forming an excellent committee. Councilmember Barksdale, would you like to speak to that as a member of the committee?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So first, I just want to say that I really appreciate the work that staff and the council did leading into and throughout. So, I mean, we really did have a fun time on the committee, and the award is it's just exciting to see that all the work that we did as a committee come to fruition. I just want to mention a couple of things here. You know, just want to thank Co-Chair Lewu from the Transportation Commission, who was there lockstep. You know, we would even work outside to try to like put the final report together to get back to the committee for review. And then just the CAC members, just the time and commitment. I mean, we pretty much had a good attendance and some really good engagement throughout the entire process. And then in terms of staff and NBBJ, just the work they did to bring the visualizations. I don't know how much, I can't remember email if you hit on this a lot, but they really brought a simulation to the group so that as we were talking through different design concepts, we could see the results of those conversations in real time. And that was visualizations from the property owners panel, and then it were brought into the conversation for the CAC. So we were able to have a discussion around, you know, what each group had considered. It was interesting to see the similarities and differences there. So as has been mentioned by Councilmember Stokes, you know, I look forward to us moving forward. Looking forward to coming to the Planning Commission and hopefully one day being able to walk through Wilburton in a TOD-oriented, transit-oriented development project.
Great, thank you, and congratulations, Jamil. That's a great award. Thanks for talking to us about it. Okay, City Manager, are you done with your report?
Yes, I am. Mayor.
Okay, so we are on to the consent calendar. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Next we have 2 study session items. Mr. Miyake, could you introduce those, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor and council members. The first item is on the budget. Tonight represents the 4th review session of the city manager's preliminary budget, which was presented to you in October. Tonight's budget presentation is on the utilities proposed department budget and rates, as well as their capital program. Tonight, we are seeking council direction to bring back the utilities rate ordinances for adoption at the time we adopt the operating and capital budget in December. Joining us this evening is Tony Call, as well as Kay Liu, Assistant Director from the Department of Finance and Asset Management, as well as Nav Olto, Director, and Lucy Liu, Assistant Director, both from the Utilities Department, as well as we have Vanja, Chair of our Environmental Services Commission this evening as well, who will be part of the presentation. With that, I turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, City Manager. It's a pleasure to be back with you this evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. Thank you once again for having us. Next slide, please. As City Manager Miyake just mentioned, we are seeking direction to bring back the utilities appropriate rate ordinance with our budget adoption on December 7th. Next slide, please. The agenda this evening, we'll do a quick review. We've done this a few weeks in a row of where we're at and where we're headed, and then I'll turn it over to Director O'Tall to take us through the utilities work. Next slide, please. You've seen this several times, but just as a recap, we started our budget work back in June. We've had 2 public hearings thus far in July 27th and September 21st. City Manager presented his budget on October 19th. We're in the middle of our weekly study sessions as we head into the next public hearing, which will be on November 23rd, with tentative budget adoption on December 7th. Next slide, please. And the weekly proposed meeting schedule, we have heard from Development Services, and you did provide direction for us to bring those rates back to you on December 7th. We heard from the Human Services and the Human Services Commission last week. Again, direction received. On November 9th, we are here with utility rates. Next week is November 16th. We have the fire inspection fee and our last study session before we head into public hearing. So as I head into next week, I'll spend a little bit more time on all the actions that will be required before we head into public hearing. And then on November 23rd, we also have study session time on that evening as well. Next slide, please. And tonight, focusing on the box, that's the blue box in front of you this evening, we will hear from Director O'Tall on the utility rates ordinance. And with that, I will turn it over to Director O'Tall.
Thank you, Director Call. Good evening, Mayor Robinson, Deputy Mayor Newhouse, and council members. Tonight is the culmination of months-long budget process for utilities, and I'm really pleased to be here tonight to provide an overview of the utilities operating and capital budgets and the proposed utilities rates for 21 and 22. Following my presentation, the Chair of the Environmental Services Commission will present the Commission's budget recommendation to Council. So we have 4 lines of business: drinking water, sewer, storm and surface water, and solid waste. We contract with the public services for solid waste, and tonight's focus will be on the 3 utilities that we manage. These are services that are essential to our community's health and safety, quality of our neighborhoods, and the health of our natural environment, our streams, lakes, and wetlands. One only has to imagine a day without water to know that they're also vital to our economic growth and prosperity of our city. The critical nature of our work has been especially underscored during the pandemic. I just want you to know that when much of the world shut down at the beginning of the pandemic, utilities never stopped working, even for one day. Now, our mission is to provide continuity of these services 24/7, 365 days a year, now and in the future. Although our services that we provide are vital, they're largely invisible to the general public. They're out of sight and out of mind until there is a disruption of service. Success for us is often measured by the absence of failures. As you know, utilities operates as a business within the city structure. What that means is that utilities gets no tax revenues. Rates are our primary source of income. Utilities systems are also not scalable. They must be sized, not only for today's needs, but for the ultimate build out for our city. We cannot be the reason that there is a moratorium on development in Bellevue. For this reason, our planning horizon is not 2 years or even 10 years, but 75 years. Utility business is also very capital intensive. We have over $3.5 billion worth of infrastructure that includes pipes, reservoirs, and pump stations that we must maintain, repair, and replace. We will go into more detail on that later. For us, our customers are valuable partners. We encourage our customers to partner with us in conserving water resources, preserving the health of the streams and lakes, and avoiding costly sewer backups. For residents who are watching, you can find tips on these areas by going to our website, bellevuewa.gov/utilities. COVID has affected our customers and the utilities. This slide shares some of the efforts we've taken to support our customers and the utility in dealing with the COVID. Because water is critical to public health, very early on, we wanted to ensure that everyone had access to services. Even before the state mandate, we stopped doing water shutoffs for non-payment. We also suspended late payment fees, are providing payment plans and emergency assistance programs for customers in financial need. We also took steps to protect our staff so that they could continue to serve the community. We anticipated a drop in revenues from COVID and took immediate action to control our costs to address potential revenue loss. Next, I'd like to walk through utilities budget process and some of the key challenges that we're facing in the next biennium. The utilities budget and rates go through a very rigorous review process with many levels of scrutiny and input. The utilities leadership team, comprised of the director, the deputy director, and the assistant directors, provides the first layer of review. Fiscal stewardship is very important to our team. We understand that we run a monopoly. If you live in Bellevue, you don't have a choice of getting your utility services elsewhere. It is our job to make sure that every decision that we make is in the best interest of our customers. Our budget rates are also reviewed in detail by the Environmental Services Commission. Utilities is unique in being the only department in the city whose budgets, both operating and capital, are reviewed by such a commission. Finally, the budget and rates are reviewed by the city manager before he decides what to forward to council for consideration. Development of the utilities budget was guided by the council strategic direction. The proposed budget allows us to support economic development in the city, protect and renew utility infrastructure and natural resources as part of the city's built and natural environment, achieve human potential by offering rate relief programs to assist low-income residents, and be a high-performing organization by maintaining long-term perspective, leveraging technology, and preserving financial sustainability. The proposed budget and rates before you are built on policies adopted by council. These policies are critical to the financial sustainability of the utilities. A key financial policy is that cost increases from wholesale providers are passed through to customers. This is important so that costs from regional providers do not hamper our ability to maintain infrastructure within Bellevue and degrade services to our customers. Another important policy is that we have smooth and predictable rates. For this reason, we do rate forecasting for 75 years, which is sort of the average lifespan of our assets. These policies also direct us to maintain adequate operating reserves. This is important so that we don't have to come back for a rate increase in the middle of the year should we have adverse weather or economic conditions which impact our revenues, such as COVID did this year. And as I mentioned, utilities is a capital-intensive business. As utility systems age, many agencies across the country will have to do double-digit rate increases or take on significant debt to pay for these needs. This will not happen in Bellevue because we are one of the few cities in the nation that is putting money aside for system replacement needs. We continue to face key challenges in our budget, especially when it comes to costs that are outside of our control. Wholesale costs from Cascade for water supply and from King County for wastewater treatment continue to increase. Per our financial policies, these costs are passed through to the ratepayers. We also face the continued challenge of managing our expansive and expensive aging infrastructure. In addition to these ongoing budget challenges, we're faced with COVID pandemic, which has impacted us financially. COVID-19 is not only dynamic, it's also a situation that we've not encountered before. This makes it difficult to quantify and plan for the impacts it will have on our revenues, not only in 2020, but in 21 and beyond. We know that some of our customers have also been impacted by COVID. To mitigate customer impacts, we have minimized costs where feasible while maintaining service levels. This is the utilities proposed budget for the next 2 years, and it addresses a number of business challenges. The largest part of the budget goes towards the bills we pay others, shown here in red and pink on the right side of the graph. This includes wholesale payments for water supply and wastewater treatment, the taxes we pay as a business, and the cost for support services from other city departments. Together, these bills make up more than half of the budget and are outside our control. Locally, the single largest expense category is for capital investment, shown in blue. This is necessary to take care of aging infrastructure so that we can provide continuity of services. About a third of our budget goes towards paying for these investments. I will go into more detail on this later. For this budget period, we've pulled back on planned capital investments and lowered our contributions to renewal and replacement fund in an effort to minimize rate impacts. As a reminder, all the infrastructure within Bellevue is owned, operated, and maintained by Bellevue Utilities. The smallest slice of the pie, shown here in green, is to pay for all the functions to run the utilities. This includes personnel costs, as well as supplies, professional services, vehicles, everything that it takes to carry on the daily functions of the utilities department. These are the costs that are within our control, and to mitigate customer impact, we have implemented cost containment measures so that our local rate increase to support operations is 0. As I mentioned, taking care of our aging infrastructure is a key challenge for us. We have over $3.5 billion worth of assets that are well past midlife, and failures are on the rise. Renewing and replacing this infrastructure is a key driver for the utility CIP. We have a robust asset management program to assess and prioritize infrastructure for rehabilitation and replacement. This is based on age, the condition of the asset, criticality of those assets, and the risk and consequences of failures. This approach allows us to provide continuity of service at the lowest life cycle costs. System failures are not only disruptive to our community, but they can also be very costly. Our goal is to replace assets just in time, not too soon and not too late. Thanks to Council's foresight, Utilities has a comprehensive long-range funding plan to pay for infrastructure investments. This strategy uses a combination of rate revenues and reserves over a 75-year planning horizon to meet future replacement needs. It also ensures that we avoid rate spikes and that each generation of customers pay their fair share of system costs. At the end of the day, we're either replacing what's broken now or putting money aside so that we have resources to fix them when their time comes. This strategy puts Bellevue in a very strong financial position to serve our customers now and in the future. This slide shows the capital program over the next 7 years, which is just over $235 million. I realize that this is a really busy slide. So to help you navigate, water projects are shown in blue, sewer projects in green, storm projects in purple, and projects for both water and sewer are in black. And each of the utilities is at a different stage in system replacement. Water is in active replacement right now. In sewer and storm, we're just beginning system replacement and are mainly focused on repairs. In both of these utilities, our primary focus is assessing the condition of the infrastructure to better inform our future replacement needs. As detailed in the first column, the biggest portion of the CIP, about $193 million, is to renew and replace aging infrastructure. This includes the water main replacement program, which Council heard about last month, as well as rehabilitation of water reservoirs and pump station. It also includes sewer pipe replacement and pump station improvements and repairs to defective drainage pipes. The second category of investments are to accommodate growth, such as providing for sufficient water storage for downtown Bellevue and Wilburton, plus new water mains to accommodate the needs of the Northeast Spring Boulevard corridor. While everything we do in all four utilities is to protect the environment, we have projects in storm utility to address three specific areas during this 7-year CIP. One is to control flooding in the city, including on Factoria Boulevard, which has experienced significant flooding over the years. The second area is for improvements in the city streams to improve habitat for fish and other aquatic species. The third area is for fish passage improvements. The fourth category of investment shown in the last column is to improve operational efficiency by building a maintenance yard to better serve our customers and to improve emergency response. The current operations and maintenance facilities are operating at or near capacity and will not meet utilities' operational needs in the future. This slide summarizes the impact of our proposed budget on the typical residential utility bill. Our current typical residential bill for all three utilities, water, sewer, and stormwater, is about $183 per month. In 2021, this will increase by $3.93 to pay for wholesale cost increases from Cascade and King County. The infrastructure investments I mentioned will require another $1.07 per month increase. Taxes and payment for support services from general fund will add another $1.91 to the bill. As I mentioned, we are not proposing any rate increase for local operations because of cost containment efforts that we've undertaken. As a result of these drivers, the total typical monthly bill for 21 will increase by $6.91. We have similar rate drivers for 2022. We worked very hard to control rate increases where we can. Wholesale costs and investment in infrastructure are the main rate drivers in this biennium. As part of our stewardship responsibility, we are constantly benchmarking our rates with our neighbors. What I can tell you is that our rates are very competitive. This chart shows you total monthly bills for water, sewer, and storm services for a typical residential, multifamily, and a large commercial customer. Bellevue's 2020 bills are shown in yellow and proposed 21 bills in blue. Our neighbors' bills are for 2020 rates. Neighboring jurisdictions are also in the process of developing their budgets right now for 2021. So we expect that their rates will also increase. We're right in the middle of the pack now and expect that we'll be in a similar relative position for 2021. You will see that some cities like Issaquah and Renton and Redmond have lower rates compared to Bellevue. What our research is showing is that there are two main reasons for that. One is the water supply source, and the second is the degree of capital investment undertaken by different cities. Unlike Bellevue, where we buy all of our water supply from Cascade, most of these cities have their own wells to meet bulk of their water supply needs. Kirkland is most similar to Bellevue in that 100% of their water supply is also purchased from Cascade. The main difference between Bellevue and Kirkland is that Bellevue is investing almost twice as much in infrastructure. This is going to serve our customers well in the long run in avoiding very expensive system failures. And Bellevue is one of the few utilities in the nation proactively investing in replacing infrastructure and setting aside funds for future replacement needs. For this reason, our rates will be even more competitive in the future. We're very mindful of those in our community who may be in disadvantaged positions, and utility bills will be a hardship for them, especially during these challenging times. And we have several programs to help support our residents in financial need. The Emergency Assistance Program is a new program that we implemented last year, and it will cover up to 4 months of basic utility service costs for customers facing a temporary financial shock, such as a result of COVID. Our ongoing rate relief programs serve low-income seniors and permanently disabled residents. Over 1,000 households take advantage of these programs, and we spend roughly $1 million per year to help these customers. In addition, the city also provides refund to low-income households for a portion of the utility taxes that have been paid as part of their utility bills. In addition to these programs that the city offers, we also refer residents in financial need to other human services organizations, such as HopeLink and Salvation Army. It is our goal to be a high-performing utility, and to that end, we use several metrics to assess our performance. Top of mind for us always is how our customers feel about our services. And on annual customer surveys, we consistently rank high in customer satisfaction. As I mentioned before, it's important to us that our rates are competitive with our neighbors. Utilities is in very strong financial position. We have no debt, and we have a very high bond rating should we ever need to issue debt in the future. And we are a nationally accredited agency. Bellevue was the first utility in Washington to be accredited, and we have been continuously accredited since 2004. We are also recognized as a leader in the industry by our peers. Now I'd like to turn it over to Vanya, the chair of the Environmental Services Commission, to provide the commission's recommendation on utilities, budget, and rates.
Good evening, Chair Banya. Is she out in the wings?
Yes, I stopped talking without unmuting.
Oh.
Good evening, Mayor Robinson and council members. I have a toddler. Bear with me. I'm Vanya Knežević, Chair of the Environmental Services Commission. A key responsibility for the Commission is to advise City Council on utilities, budget, and rates. In this role, the Commission represents the interest of utility rate payers and takes the responsibility assigned by Council very seriously. Over the last 10 months, the Commission reviewed the budget in detail over 8 meetings. The Commission has closely scrutinized and proposed utilities operating and capital budgets and the rate increases to implement the budgets. The Commission received public input on the proposed utility CIP through an online open house. The Commission also held a public hearing to gather public comments on the proposed utilities budgets and rates. This work formed the basis for the Commission's recommendation. Based on our budget review, the Commission unanimously recommends the proposed utilities operating and capital budgets and rates. Commissioners, as Bellevue ratepayers, are sensitive to the impact of the rate increases to customers, especially during COVID-19. We know this is a difficult time for many residents and businesses, and it's not easy for the Commission to consider rate increases at this time. Unfortunately, external costs, including wholesale costs, taxes, and support service costs, are increasing. These costs are not within the Utilities Department's control and will require rate increases. The Commission expressed concerns about rate increases, and staff responded by further reducing costs within utilities control. As a result, no rate increase is proposed for local operations. To further mitigate customer impacts, the department also lowered contributions to the capital reserves. The Commission supports the proposed capital reserve contributions in order to sustain service delivery to the community now and in the future. The proposed budget and rates represent a prudent and lean budget that is designed to enable the city to continue to provide high quality services. The Commission appreciates staff's stewardship of ratepayer dollars, focus on customer impacts, and continued focus on operational efficiencies. On behalf of the Commission, we appreciate the opportunity to analyze the utilities budget and provide the recommendation to Council. Now I will return presentation back to Director O'Toole.
Thank you, Vanya. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the presentation, and Chair Vanya, thank you so much for speaking to us tonight. Nice job. I know Councilmember Lee is the liaison to this commission, so I'm going to have him speak first, and then I'll call on you in this order. Councilmember Barksdale next, Robertson, Stokes, Deputy Mayor Noonhouse, Councilmember Zahn, and then myself. So Councilmember Lee, would you like to start off?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am very, very honored to be liaison to the Environmental Commission. And it's just wonderful to see how they have worked well with the staff. And also, I want to say that the recommendation that they made, I'm fully in support because of the consideration and the discussion. And I believe also, just want to say a couple of words about utilities department. It's a wonderful organization. As I know that, it is very unique. It's almost like a mini city. Basically it is. It's a separately operated, self-financed based on their own rates. And it's a function that they have to be fiscally responsible, and they have to be prudent in financial policies. And they have followed the principle of the city of Bellevue in terms of the policies and strategies and so on. And the key factor is they're talking about a service that has to be continuous, smooth, predictable, reliable to the public, whether we have strike, whether we have virus or anything, no matter, people expect those services. And so it has to depend on how they invest, how they spend money, and how they control costs. And I've been very impressed, I am sure, as the commission, Utility Services Commission, about the quality of people that they have working, and you can see the approval by the public. So it's a service that I've been very impressed. And, as it's been proven during this COVID-19, they have responded to even the social issues of equity and so on. And they've always been considering the important factor of what government is supposed to do, where the public depend on. I fully support, but I do have one question and maybe a couple of comments. I hope it also reflects my observation of the Utility Commission members. The observation is, just like any city, they have to provide regular, reliable services. But at the same time, they need to have a little bit of innovation, creativity, so that, like employing technology to improve on efficiencies and maybe some cost savings. And they've proven that by the AMI, because it's a technology that actually can save the personnel in making the system more actually work better, because it's more reliable, easy to read, and also as cost saving, because it eliminates the manual service to the customers. So I think that's an example of things that they can do in addition. Obviously, the major function is to provide the services I just mentioned. So I think the Environmental Service Commission, some of the commission members have been very, very much interested to look at environmental services initiative as environmental stewardship. I think this is something that perhaps as a city, as a utility department, with encouragement and support of the environmental service commissions, they can be spending a little bit extra time, a little bit effort, because they can result in long-term sustainable service and sustainable saving, and it will be a wonderful thing to consider. So this is my observation. My question is, I know that AMI has resulted in a saving of reducing 4 full-time equivalent. So I approve the budget as presented, not approve, I support it. I fully support the recommendation by the commission. But as a council member, I have a question is, where does the money go? I know that any money that's saved has to remain in the utility department. So I just want to know what if the director, now has considered or has put somewhere, and I would imagine that money will be well spent on programs such as environmental stewardship programs, and maybe also in some technology innovation to increase additional saving and sustainability of our environment that we're talking about. So thank you again, and congratulations to the commissioners. Well done. Thank you. So perhaps Nav can answer that question. Where do we have saving the 4 FTE go?
So the FTEs will be reduced, like we will be giving up those FTEs, and that will reduce our future operational costs. And what that does is, as you know, rates are our only source of funding for everything. So the future rate increases will not need to be as high as it would normally would have been, because now we have fewer FTEs.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Barksdale, you're next.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Nav, and staff, as well as, so I had a couple of questions. Also, I wanted to note, I appreciate the KPIs in the slide. I appreciate those. So kind of building on Councilmember Lee's question around innovation. Last time you were here, Nav, I had inquired about sensor technology. So in terms of the innovation, just curious about whether we've, if in any way we've factored in sort of piloting new technology in the budget, and if not, how can we maybe, what can we do? And then I have one more question. So in terms of money for stormwater management, are we thinking about any other ideas there? So for example, making Bellevue more of a sponge to reduce runoff, given some of the flooding that's been happening sort of closer to the lakes. So just really curious about those two questions.
Okay, I'll take the first one, which is the easier one, about sensors. And sensors are my dream for having autonomous systems, especially for our SCADA system. But unfortunately, we are still building the foundational systems. So the first foundational system is, as Councilmember Lee mentioned, AMI, having the smart meters and having the infrastructure in place. And then the second one is implementing our SCADA master plan. So our SCADA system is now pretty past its life, and it's still operating on copper wires. And we need to sort of do the basic, what I call the lowest level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But eventually the plan is that once we are well underway with the SCADA implementation and replacement, that we will then look at piloting some sensor technologies. And so I know that you and I have met and that you expressed an interest, and we're very interested also. There isn't anything in the budget at this point. I asked my staff about what would a pilot of few sensors cost, and it would be roughly about $100,000 to do about 5 sensors in a very localized area just to test the technology. Yeah, and so it's feasible. We would do that in a couple of years once we have sort of finished doing the SCADA implementation.
Thank you.
And then on the stormwater management and making the city a sponge, that's not something we really want to do. That's what Bellefield Office Park is. It's a sponge. It's peat, and once peat is waterlogged, it actually is very bad for utility systems. I mean, the water main break we had at Lake Hills Boulevard, that was mainly because of the peat soils. But the more important, I think, what you're really asking is, how do we encourage that the runoff stays on the property rather than running off and create not only picking up pollutants, but just the sheer scouring of land. And so by the MPDS permit directs us and the development in Bellevue to look at low impact development where feasible. The issue is the kind of soils we have, that there aren't very many areas in Bellevue that it is actually feasible to do low impact development. You know, we have clay soils that they're not very permeable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely targeted areas. So wetland enhancement, green roofs, right? Those types of things. So yes, not all of Bellevue would be a sponge, but in targeted areas, I was just curious about any money that we have set aside to make those enhancements. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Robertson.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Barksdale. It's always good to figure out a way to get more of the water to perk into the ground rather than run off through our system. It's better for our system and it's better for the lakes and streams as well. But that's, you know, if we have opportunity to buy more land, we usually do. For example, the wetland, and we just bought some more park property next to We Own a Park. That all helps with that. So, but that wasn't what I was going to say. I just wanted to join him because I'm very concerned about stormwater. And one of the things that we're really doing is putting a lot more effort into our stormwater system needs. I know in the last several years we are, you know, have we finished mapping the stormwater system in the public and private ways yet, Nav?
Not quite. It's a work in progress, and in this budget, you're going to see watershed planning effort, and that is really do basin planning to say where should we target our efforts for maximum benefit.
Oh, I'm glad we're doing that. Also, as we add more tree canopy, I don't know if this is already part of the ESI, that'll help with stormwater runoff because it'll help suck up some of that water. I had one comment on additional comment on storm, and that is, I know we're going to be doing the Factoria Boulevard project, And I don't know how that's phased. I saw last week that the Kimco Factoria Mall redevelopment master development plan was just approved. I don't know if that project's going to result in closing lanes or not, but Factoria Boulevard, but before COVID and now starting to get that way again, is getting very, very congested. So I'd like to make sure that the department tries to keep those lanes open as much as possible during the hours in which there's heavy traffic. And if Kimco is going to be closing any roads as a result of their project, I don't know if it would time up correctly, but if we could time up those together to minimize the hurt on the people traveling through that corridor, I think that would be really helpful. Do you know how we're going to manage the traffic?
Sorry. So I'm not up on when this about the Kimco project, but definitely we will look into coordination on that, okay. and make sure that we are coordinating with the developer.
So when was the project supposed to start for the stormwater?
Let me just check.
You know, it's okay. I took a survey on it because I live in the area. I know that we're surveying the neighborhoods about it right now. So I just wanted to put a plug in for, you know, easing the pain in that corridor to the extent that we can. I know it's going to impact the road, but if we can time it, I just wanted you to be aware. Okay, finally, two more quick things.
So Linda just got back to me that the project will go to construction in 2022.
Okay, so 2 years. Yeah. Good. There'll be time to look at the Kimco and see if we can coordinate. I don't know if they're going to be closing roads. Okay, finally on the things that we hear from the public the most about water is one of two things. One is when people move from out of the area, particularly out of state, they can't believe how high water sewer storm is in this region. And because they're living in Bellevue, they think that we're the only ones that are that high. So having some really good information for the public about why it is and how it is. I took a picture of the slide that you showed where something like 2/3 of our costs are direct pass-throughs. I think that would be really helpful so people can understand where the money goes and why it costs what it does. The other thing is leaks, and I hopefully AMI will reduce people getting the big sticker shock from leaks. I didn't know if we might want to consider changing policies where we could, if people do get a big, I know we can cut it, but I wouldn't mind having it be where we could cut it to the city's costs. So we're getting reimbursed for what it costs us when people do have that, especially in this time when we're in a recession with COVID, it really hurts. We're not cutting off their water, but if they are getting a huge bill, it really hurts. And then finally, one of the things I've seen the public asking for repeatedly is they want the utilities department in Bellevue audited. And I'm not saying that I'm supporting that. I know that we get audited by the state auditor's office regularly. And I know that our department has won all sorts of awards. So is there anything that we can share that would give confidence to the public who have sticker shock on the rates that we are doing all the right things? Is there a way that we could, one, show that, what are we doing? And two, how do we get that message out?
Yeah. Well, I think the slide on the metrics. So to me, it's about the customer. How does the customer feel about us? And that we rank high, or we get good response. What's the status of the finances of the utility? And we are in very, very strong position financially. And then what does the industry think of you? And we have been accredited over and over again since 2004. And the awards, gold and platinum awards, and sustainability. So these are the metrics that would tell you, these are all external metrics. They are not something that the utilities sort of says, we're good. These are my grades for you to assess. And what we do is we try and do outreach to the community. Unfortunately, we don't get very much attention. We literally are out of sight and out of mind. So just for this budget, we scheduled two neighborhood leaders meetings, one at lunchtime, one in the evening, we got very few people attending. We were very grateful to the people that attended. Great response. They were very enthusiastic, and all of them said, wow, I didn't realize what it takes to deliver utilities. So I think you're right in that we do need to focus, and Councilmember Lee has said that many times, is that we really do need to focus on communicating the value of water and the value of utilities to our customers.
I think that'd be helpful. I don't know if we have pages on the utility website where people could, want to know what goes into my water bill. How am I confident? If you could have that information available on the city's website, I think that would be really helpful, because those are the questions we do get. And I know what a great job you guys are doing, and I know how fiscally responsible you are. I just want the rest of the world and people who pay the rates to understand all of that. So thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, good conversation. I really appreciate Nav and staff and the commission for all working together on this and presenting this budget. This is a interesting, complex situation, and I appreciate Councilmember Robertson's comments on this. She and I both, and sometimes on Next Door, have been talking to some people about this, and it's interesting in that when we look at rates, and one thing we find out is that, as Nav mentioned, which is very important, we have an amazing asset replacement, and we take care of our system, which in the long run is better for everybody financially and everything else. And you find that even in the cities around us, that some of the rates, the way they charge the water or sewer is not direct, or they only charge part of it. So it's really hard to make comparisons. I have found in checking, when people complain about they came from so-and-so and the water is higher, and that actually I haven't found any that's really accurate. It's because people don't quite understand what goes into it. And the interesting thing here too is that we don't just charge water separately. So it's all together, and people look at that big bill, and the biggest part is the stormwater, the wastewater. And so that's what gets them concerned. So I really appreciate, and I think we need to increase the outreach on that and help people understand it, and listen to what their concerns are. I did want to mention something that's very important in all this, that a lot of times I don't think council as much knows about it, and certainly the public, but we are part of a unique Cascade Water Alliance that provides water to Bellevue, and it has Bellevue, Kirkland, Redmond, Issaquah, Tukwila, and two Skyway and Sammamish water systems, and Sammamish covers the whole area there on the other side. And the other factor we have is the lake taps. And Bellevue and the Cascade Water Alliance, all the cities around us are looking at the future too. So we're not only talking about just getting supplies now, but making sure that Bellevue and the east side has adequate water going in the future. And as things get complicated with the environment and everything else, there's a good reason for this. And it's the same kind of attitude that the Utilities Department has in terms of its looking to the future. So I think that's, again, a hallmark of what Bellevue and the region are doing. And so I think it's good, and really appreciate the work that's gone into this. As chair of the Cascade Water Alliance, I know we put a lot into it. We work with staffs and the cities, and all work together. Councilmember Lee is the alternate, and he's been very involved in the process. So I think we're in good shape on this. The water is vital, and if we don't have it, we're in bad shape. So we do try to work on the rates, and it's and also in keeping having water for the future, having it done the right way. Plus, I wish we had more control over the sewer treatment, but we just advise on that. We don't have the same role. At Cascade, the cities vote on the budget, so it's the cities and the partners. So it's direct involvement with the sewer treatment. We basically, whatever King County comes up with, that we pay it. But again, it's a huge system, and I think we're in really good shape on that. And I appreciate the budget presentation and the work that the Environmental Commission has done. That was my first assignment, and I remember seeing the chart there for the 75 years of replacement of the system. It was just amazing to see that. And so I think we're in good shape. I appreciate it going forward and the work that the commission has done and the department on the future on technology. One thing that I think I want to mention is that, and I'm fascinated by the idea of the Environmental Services Commission, which is somewhat of a misnomer, that it actually would be more involved in the environmental work in the city. That's not quite, all of this is not quite in its sphere, but I think that could be very helpful in that. And the last thing is, I just want to say I very much approve and will vote to pass this budget, this part of the budget. So I appreciate all the work that's done. I'm glad we're here at this stage.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. Deputy Mayor Nunhaus.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, great job, Nav, and nice to see Lucy here as well. And Chair Vanya, thank you for joining us this evening, giving the Commission's perspective on this. I too, support this proposed budget, and great to see so many of the commissioners putting in such great work. Over this budget during those 8 different sessions, and great to see Councilmember Lee supporting this wholeheartedly as well. So just a couple of quick things for me, because I remember when I was liaison, Nav, to the commission, and I'm glad we did now in terms of that emergency assistance program. I'm curious how many folks have actually applied for that and what the impact is to your department.
So on the emergency assistance program, actually, it's been about 15 folks that have applied this year, 15 okay. Households. Yeah. What's interesting about that is that a lot of people are not willing to go through the application process. And in the beginning of COVID, well, there was they didn't qualify because of the income. I expect that we will see an uptick even more than the 15 that are there right now. The bigger impact is actually in the payment arrangements that we're making that anybody is eligible for. And that's increased quite a bit. I think it was like a $2.3 million, outstanding utility bills. Yeah. So we're trying to help our customers in multiple ways. The emergency assistance program is a very small part of that. The bigger one is helping everybody who's, if they need more time to pay their bills.
If we see that continuous impact or growing impact to your department and going into next year, do you have contingency plans in place in order to address that issue?
Yeah, so we, in our revenue forecasting, we are assuming some revenue loss to continue into 21 and even maybe a tiny bit into 22. So we have a plan and we will use reserves, and a big part of it was cost containment. That is really, it wasn't that we didn't need a rate increase, because of course costs are going up for us just like they are for everybody else. But it was, where can we cut costs, hold positions open, that kind of thing. So that is the way we are managing this year and next year. Okay. We know that we will lose revenue.
Yeah, okay. And then as some of my colleagues have mentioned regarding public outreach, obviously always very important, but perhaps not as important as right now in terms of going through a pandemic and the fact that we are increasing our rates. So I think whatever we can do to ensure that we are communicating why this is happening, and that it's the external costs, and that, you know, this is really passed along costs. It's really not the cities who wants to increase this rate, but we're forced to. So, you know, be it bill inserts or social media or what have you, I'm glad to hear you're doing the 2 meetings as well. But if there ever was a time to be very vigorous in terms of our outreach, this would be the time to do it. And, you know, I think most folks, if they understand, as Councilmember Robertson was indicating, you know, how and why the rates are set, and why there's a small rate increase at this time, I think will be very beneficial, not only to the ratepayer, but also to the city as well, to be able to explain that. So, and then one other comment about AMI, which we've talked a little bit about here. So how does this budget affect the rollout of AMI? When are we going to start rolling it out? And then when do you see it being fully operational citywide?
So this budget doesn't affect AMI.
Okay.
The AMI was already budgeted.
Okay.
And the thing about utilities budgets is the money, when you don't spend it, doesn't go away. It doesn't get lost. It is just moved on to the next year. So as we do the implementation, it will be there for us. And so we're about 6 months behind schedule. We are just in the process of finishing installing new meters for commercial customers.
Okay.
And then starting in February, the plan was to start with the residential meters.
Right.
That unfortunately is delayed by about 6 months because of COVID and manufacturing delays. So right now, I think we are thinking that substantial completion in December of 21. So December of next year, we are hoping that we will be largely complete with this project. Oh no, sorry, I misread that.
Oh, okay.
That was our original. So that's been delayed to May of 22. So a year and a half.
A year and a half. Okay.
A year and a half. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you so much. And again, thanks for the great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you.
Excuse me. Sorry, Councilmember Zahn, I'm sorry. Is Councilmember Barksdale still on the call? I don't see him. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember Zahn.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you, Nav, Lucy, and the Environmental Services Commission. So much work that you've done to get us to this point. I really appreciate it, because I think, you know, you're right that utilities success is absence of failure. And it is one of those that we don't always appreciate until we don't have water, or we have issues and sewer backflows. And so really paying attention to that, especially during COVID, where we know that hand washing and having water is super important. So having that reliable and predictable service matters. I would echo the comments from my fellow council members about, we do such great work. So if we could really accentuate the work we're doing, maybe in Hot Topics, we could add a section on utilities so that those that are there can get to right away the charts that show where we are in terms of our rates and what goes into that with the pie chart. I think that would go a long ways to really showing and highlighting how well we are good stewards of our money and our community's money. So those dashboards, I think, are amazing. I also appreciate the utility relief. So it's good to hear that we do have folks that are reaching out. My only comment there would be, if we find that the 4-month utility bill relief is that we have more people, that 4 months isn't quite enough because of COVID, we might want to talk about whether we would consider slightly more months than 4, just because we're in these unprecedented times. So that's one comment. And then my last comment is actually the O&M facility, the yard development. Is that just a yard, a civil project, or is there also a building as well for our staff?
It will be primarily a yard. It really does depend on what property we acquire. So the first phase is primarily a yard, because we Eastgate Yard is our current yard, and it's kind of bursting at the seams. And for emergency response purposes, it would be really good to have a yard at north end. So we have, In the last budget, council approved funding for land acquisition, and this one is for development of that yard.
Okay, so my ask then would be that as we move forward with that land development, that we do look at low impact development, that what are the things we can do within that development so that we are doing best in class around stormwater management, maybe some innovation that we might want to think about. So I think that that's one of the things. And then, you know, the greening of our fleet over time. So as we look at our whole capital program, really moving forward with getting our fleets also to emit less greenhouse gas emissions. So really looking at that from a sustainability standpoint. And I agree with my colleagues that if there's an interest in having the Environmental Services Commission really look at our ESI, and I actually would say that it's more than just the Environmental Services Commission, because almost every board and commission has a component of environmental stewardship embedded within it. So just like we're looking at things from an equity lens, I think that there's a environmental sustainability lens as well as an equity lens we should be looking at through all of this work. So super excited about the budget. I support it. Those were my main comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Zahn. And, you know, I know how expensive it is with the wastewater treatment when it fails. And that's a big cost in our utilities. And I know we're working hard to fix things before they fail. But can I turn this into a PSA moment, please? And thank you, Nav, for talking about the website. But, you know, I still, because I work with older adults, so many people don't know that flushable wipes don't flush. And you just, you know, it causes so many problems. And I was looking on the internet. I don't know if you support this idea, Nav, but they were saying if you want to test your toilet paper and see how dissolvable it is, you put 2 pieces in a glass of water for 20 minutes. And after 20 minutes, it should have broken into pieces. And if it's not, then your toilet paper is not dissolvable enough. And it even said the best toilet paper is toilet paper that's made out of recycled paper, like Cascades, just so you know. But it would, you know, we have so many old pipes in our homes in Bellevue. I think anything we can do to not plug those up is a good idea. But thank you for all your work. And I really support this recommendation. So Deputy Mayor, would you like to make a motion, or Nam, did you want to say something?
Yes, we are looking for direction today. Yeah. And Lucy, can you bring up the last slide? Lucy?
Yes.
Sorry. So we are looking for direction on moving forward with our ordinances. So I'd like to ask your direction on whether you're ready to bring back the 21-22 rate ordinances for adoption in December.
So I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor to make a motion.
Certainly, I move to direct staff to prepare utility rates ordinances per adoption as part of the budget adoption package at a future meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, City Manager, you want to introduce the next?
Sure, Mayor and council members. The next item is the quarterly update, third quarter update on the economic development activity within the city. This is an informational update, and joining us this evening is Jesse Canedo, our Chief Economic Development Officer, along with Philly Marsh, Economic Development Manager, both of who you saw last week, both from Community Development. With that, I'm turning it over to you, Jesse.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of Council. We are very happy to be here tonight to give an update on economic development activity that happened in the third quarter of this year. And Philly and I will be tag teaming this evening's presentation. So for tonight, it is a information only presentation. And I do want to note that tonight's presentation is also a transition period between the implementation of the prior plan from 2014 and the new economic development plan that the council adopted by resolution last week. So you'll start to see some new items coming into tonight's presentation as we work to transition to that presentation. And next slide, please.
Do you see the agenda slide there?
I'm not seeing any slides. Is anybody else?
This is Philly. I'm trying to share my screen here.
I'm not seeing your screen. There we go. Now you got it.
Perfect. Okay.
All right. So on tonight's agenda with the council, we'll do a little discussion on economic recovery from the Bellevue context, talk about our ongoing work in business attraction, business retention, and then dive into 3 of the 6 chapters from the new economic development plan, focusing on small business, workforce development, and the creative economy. And as usual, we'll end with a brief update on what's next and what the council can expect in economic development over the next quarter. Next slide. Thank you. So for reference, we will be presenting going forward on the 6 core focus areas in the new economic development plan. Those are capacity building and partnerships, small business and entrepreneurship, workforce, retail, creative economy, and tourism. And because of the breadth of activity that happens in economic development and the level of activity that happens in Bellevue, we're not likely to present on all 6 topics each quarter, but really try and highlight the areas that made robust advancement when we talk to the council. Next slide, please. So to open up tonight and talk about regional economic recovery, we will start by giving the council some updates on unemployment. This is part of our work to provide more data references and contextual data to help the council understand how Bellevue is doing relative to benchmark cities, both within the Puget Sound region and also compared to our national benchmark cities. So on the screen, you're now seeing Bellevue's unemployment rate relative to the other 3 core cities within the region. And you'll see that Bellevue's unemployment is significantly lower than our neighbors in Tacoma and Everett, and slightly below our neighbors in the city of Seattle. So Bellevue's unemployment rate has trended with the rest of the region, but continued to remain below the other core cities. Next slide, please. And when we abstract out to the national level, we're comparing ourselves to the 5 benchmark cities that were recommended by the consultants at EY who helped us develop the economic development plan. And those are Arlington, Virginia, Boulder, Colorado, Sunnyvale, California, Santa Monica, California, and Cambridge, Massachusetts. A nice nationwide spread of communities that are similarly situated within their region and share similar market dynamics and economies to Bellevue. And when we look at our performance in unemployment relative to our national benchmark cities, we see that Bellevue is a bit more in the middle of the pack relative to those communities. And that's important to note the differences within those economies as well. Arlington, Virginia is directly across the Potomac from Washington, D.C. So it does have a higher preponderance of workers in federal jobs, which have been more stable. And similarly, Sunnyvale is much more reliant and concentrated in tech relative to Bellevue. They don't have the robust hospitality industry that we have here. So when you look at a community like Santa Monica, there is abundance of tourism that happens in Santa Monica. And as the council knows, that has been a hard hit industry this year. So the tourism industry is actually one of the reasons that keeps Bellevue more in the middle of the pack, as we have historically had more of a reliance on corporate travel and corporate tourism, which has not yet rebounded. So that's keeping us more in the middle of the pack right now. And I'll turn it over to Philly to dive a little bit deeper into tourism.
So thanks, Jesse, and good evening. Our overnight visitors are slow but steadily returning, and typically Bellevue outperforms the national market, but unfortunately Bellevue's hotel occupancy rate is now trending about 20% lower than that national market. This is due to Washington being one of the most impacted states, and the urban markets that are more reliant on air travel and international travel have been hit harder than the rural and outdoor destinations. Another big challenge that Jesse alluded to is that for Bellevue is that right now there's no group or corporate demand in the economy right now. And so Visit Bellevue has really pivoted its focus on that regional leisure travel with weekend getaway itineraries and packages, promotion of dining events, and taking advantage of winter things to do promotions to capture visitors and get heads in beds, even if it's more of a regional market. So it's so vital to stay clean and safe so we can continue this upward trend and reinstill consumer and visitor confidence. Some things that have helped and will continue to help are Maiden Bauer Center was the first in the state for a biorisk certification that you heard about a few weeks ago. Clean and safe is a primary message pillar in the East Side Together campaign, as well as King County just launched the All Clear Safety Pledge that Visit Bellevue and our local hotels and attractions are participating in. This pledge is backed by public health protocols to help our region reopen responsibly and is connected to the Do Something campaign that just launched, and Bellevue is actually the opening shot of their promotional video that you can see there on the screen.
And next, we'll touch on some of the continued COVID impacts that the community can expect as we move towards the end of 2020 and into 2021. Want to note that there will be some changes in downtown this year due to COVID and the effects on holiday activity. Events like Snowflake Lane and Magic Season will be reduced or rescoped. But we're also working with the Bellevue Downtown Association, the Old Bellevue Merchants Association, the Bellevue Arts Museum, and others to make sure that we have COVID appropriate activities in downtown so that people continue to find a reason to visit and frequent the retail shops and the restaurants in downtown Bellevue through the holiday season. So we'll touch on one of those items, which is Bellwether, later in the presentation. Also want to note that we are being cognizant of the continued importance of maintaining social distancing, but we are seeing some important trends here in Bellevue and some good local response with a local per capita caseload of about 18.4 per 100,000. Local rates are about half the national rates, and positivity is only, testing positivity is only 2 percentage points. Is 2 percentage points lower than King County as a whole. So we are seeing the community responding to COVID appropriately, and the events and activities that we do help bring to downtown Bellevue over the winter will be 100% with that framework in mind. Also want to note that we are continuing to do our work with Greater Seattle Partners, with GSP, on their regional recovery work. So Brian McGowan, who's gave public comment last week, very briefly to the council, has been working very closely with our staff to make sure that the regional recovery plan reflects Bellevue's needs on the east side in general. So within that regional recovery plan, there are focuses on entrepreneurship and workforce, which are well aligned with our updated ED plan that was approved last week. So we will bring the council more information as that recovery plan moves closer to implementation with GSP. I do want to note that we are working very closely with them and our neighboring cities to make sure that the east side comes out strongly once COVID is safely under control. And with that, I'll turn it back to Philly to talk about some of our programs in depth.
So to kick off, part of that GSP recovery framework are strategies to sustain and emerge more globally competitive after the pandemic. While unfortunately business attraction efforts came to a standstill worldwide with the restriction of travel, we're starting to see some virtual interest and are working in coordination with GSP and the Innovation Triangle to host interested delegations. I hope you had a chance to see the compelling Dear Rest of the World video campaign that was launched at the end of September. There's a great shot of Maidenbower Bay included in the video, and that video has garnered excellent online engagement with over 10,000 views and 1,000 engagements since its launch. And while we're in the middle of a pandemic, I am thrilled to say that Bellevue got its first PCC community markets over the summer, as well as the recent Target opening at Wilburton Village. So it's important to note that business attraction is those global, larger things, but also our local community market is valuable as well, at least in my opinion. Big PCC fan. Some highlights of our business retention and expansion efforts involve job creation across the city. They include the recently renovated T-Mobile headquarters that the mayor and deputy mayor had the opportunity to tour, as well as the very exciting news of Amazon's continued expansion and Facebook's announcement of purchasing the former REI headquarters in the Spring District. These major expansions in Bellevue in the middle of a pandemic are a true testament of Bellevue's welcoming and business-friendly environment. And while both of these can be considered major wins in themselves, the announcements also came with corporate investments in the community, with Amazon's $1 million contribution to the Human Services Fund and Facebook's $1 million contribution to East Rail. So we're very grateful for these companies and look forward to working with them in their expansion. Turning to some of our COVID relief work, in mid-October, the first round of the small business grants, thanks to the King County CARES funding, were awarded. Awarded businesses were in the industries that were the most impacted by COVID, including accommodations and food services, retail, arts organizations, and childcare. 67% of the awarded businesses were female-owned, 55% minority-owned, and 43% were immigrant or refugee-owned. Small businesses are extremely appreciative of this funding, and thanks to Council, an additional 75 small businesses are being awarded funding based on the October 12th CARES allocation. And we'll bring a comprehensive report on demographics for our Q4 year-end update. And while many of our efforts over the past 8 months have been focused on COVID relief, we have stayed course on many of our existing programs that remain crucial for entrepreneurship and economic gardening. Our Startup 425 Foundations course continued in an online format and have added COVID-related course material, including enhanced digital marketing strategies, cybersecurity, and running a business remotely. In addition, Startup 425 is in the middle of a new pilot program called the Innovation Lab, and this is in partnership with Bellevue College's Tombola Institute. It's an accelerator with brand new curriculum developed through Professor Leslie Lum in collaboration with UW, SCORE, and the Washington State Department of Commerce. A cohort of 10 businesses were chosen to participate, and the class discussions on the material have been very engaging, even though it's in this virtual format. The attendees are all women and minority-owned businesses spanning IT to property management, legal, consulting, and healthcare industries. They've each been paired with a mentor that is available for questions and extra assistance outside the course, and that has proven to be very successful as well. And the goal of this accelerator is to grow existing businesses, and topics to support that growth include everything from recruiting and retaining high-performing teams, what's the customer journey and how to optimize it, as well as strategy and metrics. So just the details of some of the companies. There's a fintech company that's using AI. There's consultant training in DEI strategies, as well as building construction and renovation cleaning. So really span all industry types. And we're really excited to see the success of this pilot program and get a full download and how to improve and move forward with it. And then just really quickly, I wanted to introduce our new SBDC advisor, Mari Roble. She's pictured there on the screen. Mari is a former small business owner and has 25 years of consulting expertise at leading professional service firms. And she's already helped many of Bellevue's small businesses since she has started in May. And then we quickly want to mention that although we did just adopt the ED plan last week, thank you very much, we've started some significant efforts to develop a workforce program benefiting Bellevue's residents and employers, both with conversations with our neighboring cities, as well as our regional partners, such as the Workforce Development Council of Seattle-King County, Seattle Foundation, Ballmer Group, Bellevue College, many departments within Bellevue College, among many others. This work has included discovery of the need within the current regional workforce development ecosystem, and to really understand opportunities for strategic alignment, as well as partnership possibilities. We've also had conversations with several large employers in Bellevue and on the east side who have expressed interest to support the workforce development strategies and efforts. And with that, I will turn it back over, I believe, to Jesse to talk about Bellwether.
Thank you, Philly. Mayor, members of council, I'm very excited to give a brief update on Bellwether 2020. As the council knows, this is our annual Arts Week here in the city that's heavily sponsored by the public art dollars to help provide access to arts and cultural opportunities every year. And this year, it is sliding into December. It normally happens at the end of, in the late summer, but this year we're moving it into December to allow it to innovate and adapt to COVID, but still provide fantastic access to the community for arts and culture resources. So this year's show will be kicking off in early December and last through January 16th. And it will be focusing very heavily on digital artwork. Both actually digital designed pieces, as well as for the first time recorded video and recorded performances in short film that will be available to stream online 24 hours a day for the duration of the show. So we're very excited about that particular piece and that pivot to include digital work. There will also be an in-person component. We are working with the Bellevue Arts Museum to host some in-person exhibits in their space, because the museum is adapting very well to COVID regulations and providing a safe space for the consumption of cultural activity. So the council can expect to see that, more announcements on that and more advertising for that coming up shortly. Next slide, please. And I did want to take a moment to highlight how Bellwether has been evolving over the last few years and some of the increase in participation and changes in participation. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see a set of red bars on a chart that shows how attendance on opening night has transformed over the last 3 iterations of Bellwether. You'll see a large increase in attendance on opening night, showing the change in format, the change in activity, and really the community's change in attitude towards Bellwether and the more consolidated, condensed opportunities for culture and connection. And in the right half of the screen, the blue bar chart shows the participation by artists of color within the show. So over the last 3 iterations, the percentage of artists who identify as a person of color has increased to nearly over 60% of the artists, up 40% from just a couple of years ago. And we're very proud of that, because we're hoping that it allows more Bellevuers who are a very diverse residential set to identify with the show, to find themselves, their culture, and their artistic background reflected in Bellwether every year. So we will expect similar results in participation by artists of color in the future. Of course, the numbers will fluctuate year by year, depending on how the number of artists we actually have in the show. Some years we have more, some years we have less. But we're very, very proud of these particular numbers. I'm very excited to see the community engaging with Bellwether in this way. Philly, next slide. And then with that, we will wrap it up for tonight. In terms of what's next, we will be back with the council. I'll be with Chris Goddard on November 23rd to talk about the outdoor dining pilot project that happened over the summer in Old Bellevue, and to discuss some of the lessons learned and the outcomes from there. Bellwether will again begin in early December. And we will continue to support our small businesses in their winterization over the coming months. In the next week or so, we should be getting out more information to help businesses navigate the outdoor dining options, tents and heaters and all those things, so that they can have a more successful winter this year. And we will, as Philly mentioned, continue to begin implementing the new economic development plan and standing up some new programs and partnerships to help us move powerfully forward on that. With that, we will open up for questions and comments.
Great, thank you for that presentation. This is just for information only. I'll give everybody an opportunity to comment or ask questions, but I ask that you try to limit that to 3 minutes each, please. And if we need to go back around, we shall. We're going to start with Councilmember Barksdale, then Deputy Mayor Noonhouse, Councilmember Zahn, Robertson, Stokes, Lee, and then myself. So Councilmember Barksdale.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I just want to say it's great to see this work that's happening. I'm especially excited about the Innovation Lab pilot. That looks like it's going to be a really exciting program. But also appreciate you bringing the information about the distribution of grant funds throughout the different the representation of those grants throughout the community. So just say, keep up the good work. I will say, I'm curious about Bellwether and whether there will also be 3D artwork. If there will be an opportunity for that.
There will be some pieces in the Bellevue Arts Museum. Sweet. We'll get you some more information on that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Great, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, great report, lots of activity, certainly kind of a mixed bag in terms of numbers and data and trends here, but certainly Bellevue is in a better position than most, especially regionally, even if we have been dramatically impacted by the pandemic. It's great to see the hotel and overnight visitors start to recover a little bit. It's not great yet, but a little bit. So that's really good to see. Especially appreciate the update on Bellwether there, and great to see artists of color being more involved in that event. It's really great to see as well. And as Councilmember Barksdale said, great get a lot of great data in this presentation as well, and appreciate that, especially with the Startup 425 and the grants. Two quick questions for you. So GSP and the recovery framework here. So you mentioned that in terms of working with them and our partnership with them, you're focused on two areas, and that's the workforce and the entrepreneurship. Jesse, can you be more specific in how GSP is helping us with those two initiatives?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, and I'll invite Philly to share as well. So the GSP recovery plan does place some additional emphasis on workforce training and reskilling in particular, which is of importance to Bellevue as we continue to see huge growth in tech here, and as well as finding new ways to support small business and entrepreneurship, particularly for individuals of diverse backgrounds. So GSP is looking at new opportunities, things like revolving loan funds for the region. Revolving loan funds help produce microloans for businesses to help them on their expansion and growth trajectory. Philly, do you have some additional detail you'd like to add around GSP?
Thanks, Jesse. I think you cover it, and I think what's important to know is a framework, and the number one goal is to promote the region's economic competitiveness. But with that, things like workforce and entrepreneurship come into play. So really, these are going to be high, as I understand it, kind of more high-level strategies, and then there's going to be continued involvement with the regional partners to develop the specific actions and how so we can work together in collaboration for benefit for the entire region.
Okay, well, I'd be interested in what those specific actions are when we get to that point. I appreciate the regional recovery framework, but would like to know a little bit more about the specific actions for those two areas of interest. I mean, the microloans sound that could be quite promising, but what are we looking at in terms of a budget? How many businesses could we actually help with that? What does that look like? So look forward to hearing more about that. And then one other quick question, just in terms of, since we just did pass our updated economic development plan, what will these updates look like going forward? Are they going to be, hopefully we're going to get the same amount of data, just enhanced, but maybe it's going to be repackaged a little bit too, as well as being focused on some different areas. But I don't know if one of you could speak to that just quickly, what we can expect for that next quarterly economic update.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So we will continue to provide some of the more deep measures that we have in the past, but again, broadening that out to make sure we're covering the 6 focus areas. The presentations will be similar to tonight. They'll have a bit more data in them, a bit more contextual information to help the council understand the larger environment that the city's maneuvering within, and then include some of those more tangible or different elements to make sure the council can see the work being implemented and how it's impacting the companies. So it'll be a similar format to tonight in terms of presentation.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Jesse and Philly.
Thank you. Councilmember Zahn.
Yes, thank you. Again, another very thorough report. Thank you very much. I would echo my fellow colleagues that have spoken before. Definitely the Innovation Lab, and just looking at that as a pilot, how do we even create more opportunities for businesses to collaborate and learn together? The digital artwork for Bellwether, I'm hoping there's going to be some interactive type of art where people can engage into the art, so it's not a one-way art information. So I think that would be fun. Glad to hear that in the grants that we were able to reach a broad types of businesses that are being helped, as well as the equity of being able to serve a bunch of different community members, as well as the artists. I think representation matters, and the more that we have a lot of richness in the diverse people that are part of Bellwether, I think that's really good. I really appreciate the work in partnership too about the COVID recovery, because I think one of the most important parts of this is how do we position ourselves regionally as you said, right, clean and safe East Side together, I think is going to be huge from the standpoint of as tourism starts back up, corporate travel, events, all of that we're going to be positioned really well. My one question, maybe as a follow-on to the previous comment, is, when I think about the metrics between the old plan and the new, to the degree that there can be some continuity so that we can see whether the new plan is getting the kind of results that we want. So I know that it may take a little bit of work to stitch together the old strategies to the new, but to the degree that we can do that, I think that would be really, really powerful as we move forward. So just super excited about what we can do together. And did I also hear that the outdoor dining, that will also continue into the winter? Is that right?
We'll be working with restaurants to do new outdoor dining over the winter and help them understand the different requirements this year. The Main Street project, it will not come back during the winter, but we will look at opportunities to do that again in the future, and we'll have more on that on November 23rd.
Okay, so perhaps maybe not Main Street, but in some of the neighborhood areas where people that don't want to be inside, if they can at least feel somewhat bundled up and warm and be in that clean air outside and still be eating and dining would be really nice. So thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Robertson.
Thanks. It's so hard during COVID to for all of our businesses and our people. And I when you guys make these presentations, I'm so proud of how Bellevue has really stepped up and the work you guys have been doing. It really makes me feel good about being part of the city government, but also being a resident of Bellevue. So thank you guys for that. The holiday season is usually one of our biggest in terms of sales tax revenue and activity not just in the downtown, but in all the shopping areas of the city. And I mean, when we negotiated light rail, we specifically negotiated not having them impact our traffic in and out of downtown during the holiday season, because it's that important to the well-being of our city and the opportunities for the people. So I know with COVID, it's going to be really, really challenging. And I think it would be really helpful if we partner with some of the retail organizations and our hotels to talk about, vacation. You can't go anywhere. Let's go into Bellevue. My husband and I usually do a night at a hotel in downtown. We live in Bellevue. We do a night in the hotel in downtown Bellevue right before Christmas, finish up our Christmas shopping, see Snowflake Lane, which I know will be different this year. But I think if we could kind of get that message out to people, it's really convenient. People can do shopping. There's time and space to do it even with the COVID protocols in place. I think that would be really helpful, because people are going to still need to shop. People are still going to be buying Christmas presents or Hanukkah presents or whatever. And so I think that would be really helpful. What do we have any, other than Bellwether, any of the usual holiday magic season, etc., that are still going to go forward?
Good question, Councilmember Robertson. So magic season, the ice skating rink will not happen this year just because of the difficulties of making that adapt to social distancing requirements. But we are working with the BDA to see if we can do some different lighting elements in downtown, possibly in Downtown Park and other areas of the Grand Connection, to help provide that draw. And we're also working with the Old Bellevue Merchants Association to see if we can help with their holiday lighting activities to, again, provide that reason to bring for people to drive into downtown Bellevue to do their shopping and dining for the holidays.
I'm glad to hear that, because I think it's so important. And with Crossroads and Factoria and everything else as well. So I think that's really good. I'm just really pleased with the report. Looking forward to continuing to see quarterly reports under our new plan, and well done all. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, this has been a great presentation. Appreciate it very much. And I like the new approach you're taking on this, and we're looking forward to, I think we're laying a good foundation for when we recover to some kind of normalcy down the road. I think that's very important. We have not let up, and we've really taken, I think, a good look at all of this and been innovative on ways to go forward. And a lot of the comments already shared talk about that. I really appreciate the emphasis you're making on equity and with more women and minorities involved and the growth in that area. That's very exciting. And same thing with Bellwether. I'm really looking forward to that. That's something we, with the Arts Commission is very important. And I think it's turned out to be, was a really good decision to change the focus and do it a little differently now. And I think it's working very well. Again, the effort to increase the minority artists and involvement in that is very heartening. So I appreciate that very much. And what all boils down to, again, it's the stepped up activities on the creative economy. And that's a big thing that I think Bellevue will become even more known for in the future. So kudos to the staff, to your presentation and work done by the Arts Commission, and let's go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stokes. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I want to tell the staff one more time that you guys are doing a great job in the recovering effort. There's a lot of actions, lots of things you're doing, working with the small businesses and distributing grants and money. And the only comment is, I think you are also, one thing people always mention, a lot of data, a lot of information, which is good. They give us a lot of stuff to look at. But the only thing that is missing is that we don't have enough specific action and activities, things that what are we doing in terms of programs? And I think, we basically work on the thing that you mentioned. I think I like a lot. It's like Start 425 with the Bellevue College, working with the Innovation Lab and focusing on women mentors. That's great. But we want to know how far are we? What are we doing? Are we any specific plans that we can actually focus on? The reason I'm asking for that particular one is we have GIX, Global Innovation Exchange. That's existing. We have a building there. We're working with Microsoft, with the University of Washington. So we have something that we have worked on for a number of years. And I think this is a ready-made opportunity. How are we progressing, moving toward that as a basis to expand to Bellevue College? So I'm not sure. We haven't got one off the ground and we're moving on to another one. And Bellevue College, whatever they do, it's not new. They've been working on with Microsoft, with workforce, with coding, all that stuff for a long time. So I'm just curious, what is that we're building on rather than just starting another thing, right? Another stuff. I know it's tough because COVID-19 really has put a big thing on working toward recovery effort. And again, you guys are doing this wonderful job. So I'm not criticizing you for not, focusing on new activities that we actually can be identifying for the next after recovery. What is the economic development vision and goal that we can work toward? So this is really the example that people have been talking about, the holiday festivals, group gathering. We have to work on it. Yes, we want to do more gathering like Bellevue Art Museum. But maybe I've heard a lot of good suggestions from council members already. But one of which I might just suggest, how about, in order to have this event successful, have people participate, we have to build trust in people that they're willing to come in, do those things. So an idea is contact tracing. How can we develop something that allow a Bellevue Art Museum event, that 400 people are willing to come because we have a system, we have a way of making the event work. So this is an idea. Just I want to throw it out.
Councilmember Lee, that's 3 minutes. Can you wrap up?
I'm done. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So did you, Jesse, did you want to respond to Councilmember Lee's question there?
With regards to some of the work planning activities, we do continue to work on, as Councilmember Lee was mentioning, building upon the foundational programs that we've set up over the years. So Startup 425, we're in year 4 of that partnership, and we're working with the administrators who are at the City of Kirkland to help grow that as well. In terms of GIX, they are in the middle of a strategic planning effort to understand where the institution goes next. We will look for opportunities to bring them to the council, to bring that information to the council once that strategic planning process wraps up. And then with regards to the holiday activities, absolutely messaging that the city is clean and safe is and making sure that our programming is clean and safe is our #1 priority. So we're working with Visit Bellevue, the Downtown Association, the Chamber, and others to make sure that we are using the best technologies and best practices for promoting our holiday activities.
Great. Okay, thank you. So just a few comments of my own. It's so exciting to see businesses opening successfully despite the challenges right now. And the Bee Bar in Old Bellevue on Main, that's another great example of a very successful opening. It continues to be packed every night and during the day as well. So this just amazes me that there's such a draw here, but I'm so grateful for that. I wondered with the visitors, I know your data went to September, I think. Have you seen a peak of the numbers for October at all to get an idea if we continue in an upward trajectory with that? Can you predict like what our recovery will be if it continues at the same pace that it's been going?
We can get back to you on that. I think they may have just been released for October. So we are monitoring that on a monthly basis and working with Visit Bellevue, Washington to understand. We look at quite a few KPIs with them to understand where we are and where there's opportunities and pivot. I think what's really great about Visit Bellevue is because there's no demand for the corporate business travel. They've really leaned into that leisure travel, which has traditionally been their secondary market, but really leaned into it, especially the regional travel, to really bring in heads and beds that are staycations, right? So it's people that are within that 50-mile radius, if you will. In the industry, you always want people more than 50 miles away because the likelihood of them staying overnight increases, but in that to really package it as experience for holiday shopping, for the things we do still have to offer here in Bellevue. So I think that's helping really drive those numbers upwards. And then we just kind of are looking at national daily flights from SeaTac, a lot of things that contribute to those numbers.
Great. And we have great connectivity if you want to workcation in Bellevue. So one thing I would love to think about is I know that the Bellevue Breakfast Rotary Club does the Autism Fun Run in the summer, I believe. And with the Maidenbower Bay Park open, it's such a great venue for a triathlon. I would love to see if they might expand that into a fun run and triathlon and see if we can attract people that way, because honestly, if you've done triathlons, there are very few venues as lovely as what we have in Bellevue. And I think that would attract a lot of athletes. So that could be fun. Yeah, we could do it in phases, phased competition. So everybody's not bunched together. All right, that's just my thought. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much. Very exciting to get this good news from you. We appreciate the work you're doing. So now we're on to Ordinance 6543, Mr. Miyake.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council members. Ordinance 6543 authorizes the Finance and Asset Management Director to issue up to $65 million in bonds for two purposes. One, to pay off through the use of an escrow agreement, the 1994 Bellevue Convention Center bonds, and issue new bonds, all in response to the COVID impact on the city as well as the convention center's finances. Second, to refinance bonds issued in 2010 for our capital improvement program and issue new ones due to the favorable rate environment. Joining us this evening is Tony Call, the Director of Finance and Asset Management Department, and joining her is also Nick Melicinos, our Deputy City Attorney, as well as our bond counsel, Stacy Lewis from the Pacifica Law Firm. All of them are here tonight for a brief presentation and answer any questions you might have before you take action tonight. Tony?
Thank you, City Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and Council members. Again, it's lovely to be back here with you this evening. As City Manager Miyake just mentioned, we're here to provide you with an ordinance to authorize the Director of Finance and Asset Management to issue up to $65 million in principal debt for two purposes. One, to pay off and use escrow for the 1994 bonds, and to refund the 2010 bonds. So our agenda this evening for you is I'll spend just a few short minutes on both of those pieces to get you well educated, and then end with the authority that's included in the bond ordinance. So first and foremost, starting with the 1994 BCCA or Bellevue Convention Center bonds defeasance and new issue. So the bond ordinance before you will pay off through the use of an escrow those 1994 Bellevue Convention Center bonds. The important piece on this piece of information is those bonds from 1994 are pledged and secured by our current TOT or lodging tax. That lodging tax has taken quite a dramatic impact with COVID. As you heard from the previous economic slide, we are starting to see some recovery. It is not quite at the rate that can support the existing 1994 bond convention debt. So if we do not have enough lodging tax revenue stream to support that debt, the delta between whatever the tax coming in and the debt service payment would come from the general fund. So the ordinance before you would issue new bonds. Those new bonds would be a 10-year term. They would remain, they'd be structured to be within the revised lodging tax forecast that we've just received, and they will have an early call option. So if the lodging tax comes back more aggressive than we have anticipated, we'll be able to pay that debt off earlier if so directed. It's important to note, as always, that all debt issued for the Meydenbauer Center will continue to be secured by the pledge of lodging tax money, as well as the full faith and credit of the city. In addition, the bond ordinance before you also has a refinancing or refunding component to you. The outstanding 2010 bonds can be refinanced or refunded to actually save us about 17% in interest, generating about $2.3 million over the remaining 10 years of those debt service payments. By council policy, any refunding or refinance has to have at least 3% or greater savings, and this at 17% with the current market environment would definitely meet that need. So it would actually save money for the city as well as the BCCA. Included in the bond ordinance before you, and in keeping with prior council actions, you are delegating the authority to close those bonds to the Director of Finance and Asset Management, or myself. And it would be for a limited time, not to exceed June 30th, 2021. We do anticipate actually closing these bonds probably within the first week or so of December, based on market conditions. But we would have additional time if market conditions changed, if something else changed, and we needed to hold off and not close those bonds until the first part of next year. I'm also directed within the bond ordinance within the following parameters. I can only issue up to $65 million for the purposes we've just discussed. It also authorizes me to sign a bond purchase contract. And with that, the direction we're needing from you this evening is to let us know whether we will be able to issue that debt in front of you this evening. So with that, Mayor, I turn it back over to you. With me this evening is Nicholas Melisinos and Stacy Lewis.
Thank you very much. And council members, on your liaison to the BCCA, would you like to comment first, and then I'll call on everybody in this order: Councilmember Robertson, Barksdale, Deputy Mayor Newhouse, Councilmember Stokes, and I'm missing somebody. Lee, Councilmember Lee, and then myself.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Well, first of all, Tony, you are amazing. To me, looking at this and saving us money in the long run with the favorable market conditions, moving quickly, and also recognizing that without the rebonding, that we are at risk of the city having to take on this debt, because certainly our TOT and lodging tax have just seen such a dip because of the lack of corporate travel and tourism and events. So I would say that I so applaud Visit Bellevue, BCCA, Meydenbauer Center for all the work they're doing to position us to move quickly in the COVID recovery, and to be able to bring in revenue from the King County Superior Court to have our first ever pop-up courthouse and virtual events. Those things are not enough to be able to pay back the bond terms that we currently have. So this, to me, is the best case scenario, to have an early call option. So if the revenues come back sooner, we can pay off our debt. We're getting savings. And really this gives us that opportunity to take care of business, even though the terms are a little bit longer than the current bonds, which would have to be paid off by 2024. Is that correct? So we're a few years longer, but I think that at such a favorable rate, this is the best case scenario for us. And so I am happy to support this. And I really appreciate all of the partnership between the city, Meydenbauer Center, BCCA, Visit Bellevue, to to keep us solvent and moving forward in a really positive way. So thank you.
Great. Councilmember Robertson.
Yes, what she said. I wholeheartedly agree with Councilmember Zahn. And although I hate to have to extend out the bonds, we have really no choice unless we want to take a major hit to our general fund. And you know, the 17% savings, that's quite a coup. So yeah, we are very well served by Stacy as bond counsel and Tony as our finance director and Brad as the city manager. You know, it's people like you that are making it possible for us to continue with as good of a budget outlook as we possibly can given COVID. And yeah, hopefully the TOT will come booming back and we can then retire these as close to the schedule as we originally were as possible. But yes, I will vote yes. I'm in favor. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Barksdale.
All right, thank you, Mayor. What they said. And I just want to say thank you also for being on top of it and catching this and really putting us in a position of strength here. So I support this.
Great. Deputy Mayor Newhouse.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Happy to support this. I mean, as previously said, it's a favorable rate and there's cost savings here. And yeah, we really don't have much of a choice either. It's unfortunate it's extended, but you know, all the benefits outweigh the negatives here. So we have to move forward on this. And again, great job, Tony and all on catching this and putting us in this position to take this action tonight. And again, I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Councilmember Stokes.
Yeah, I agree and appreciate all the comments that have been made already. You know, it's interesting. We just, with Cascade Water Lines, we have bonds for the Lake Taps development and everything. And we actually took, the bond market is just amazingly, it's amazingly way down. And it just makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons and to take advantage of that. So we went through one earlier in the year and we're in the process of doing another one for the same reasons, except we don't have quite the income part of it that's the pressing. So, but it's a smart thing to do. And I really appreciate staff, the leadership, understanding this and taking advantage of it and putting it together. So let's do it. I'm for it. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Lee.
Thank you. Fortunate of Bellevue to have great people like Tony, the nimbleness of the smart people who look after the numbers. And I think this makes sense, you know, with the market the way it is, bond market, and saving of 70%, you know, I mean, that's a no-brainer. The one thing is I do have a question. You know, the fund, the money, that will be paid back by TOT. You know, that's what's structured to do. But if TOT doesn't support it, then the city will have to take, you know, pay for it. In this case, the city will assume all the debt. So we still assuming the debt. So it's not that we somehow get rid of it. So we still have to be responsible. So my question is, but with the saving, you know, my question is, what does the saving do? The $2.3 million. Do we reserve it to pay off this debt, or can we just spend on something else unrelated? So that's the first question. And two, if TOT, the economy gets back, can pay for the debt, then we're in good shape. The city doesn't have to worry about it. But in the event that it doesn't, so the city will still have to pay for the difference, right? So the question is, I want to have Tony to give us a little bit of an estimate what it will be this worst case. Sounds like it will not be as bad as it is now without, you know, taking it over. Because nowadays, if the economy isn't good, TOD doesn't pay, we're still obligated anyway, the city is. But by doing this, I think we should actually have some benefit. We should be in better shape. But I just want to have an understanding. What's our plan, you know, in the event that, what do we do with the 17%, $2.3 million saving and future saving? I assume there may be, I don't know. And two, if in case we have to pay, what's the worst case? And how do we plan to do that?
Certainly, Councilmember Lee. To speak to the first question, as soon as the bonds are closed, so sometime probably after the first of the year, so let's say that the bonds actually closed the first week or so of December, I'll bring a budget amendment back to you in January-ish or maybe early February to revise the CIP to adjust the debt service to whatever the new debt service is. So those dollars would be freed up in the CIP. You're not talking a lot of money annually, a couple $100,000, depending on how the bonds close. But again, I can
use it.
There we go. I can't bring the numbers back to you specifically until we close. So that's not going to happen for a few more weeks. So that's what happened on that piece. The second piece, we have actually worked with the Bellevue Convention Center and had an updated lodging tax forecast or the TOT revenue stream forecast done. We had CBRE come in and do a full-fledged forecast for us. They do that for us annually anyways. We had it done again this year. And we have actually structured this debt to stay within that forecast and not at the top of the forecast, but a little conservative within the forecast in order to create a bit of a cushion, mainly to avoid having to come back and use the general fund as the backup plan. I can't ever completely guarantee anything when it comes to this economy, but I feel like we've made a conservative attempt to make sure that we've done it the best possible way we could.
Great job, as usual.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Well, I'm always amazed with the convention center at how well it performs. You know, when we do these BDA tours every year of comparable cities, we always look at their convention center, and we've never seen one that does better than Bellevue's. And the business model that they created is just ingenious. And to have this cushion here that is, you know, relatively pain-free to do to keep everything going is fantastic. So appreciate the opportunity to do this. And I think we're ready for action. So Deputy Mayor, would you like to make a motion?
Certainly, I move to adopt Ordinance 6543 that will authorize the Director of Finance and Asset Management to issue up to $65 million in principal debt for two purposes. One, to pay off through the use of an escrow agreement, the 1994 Bellevue Convention Center bonds and issue new bonds. And two, to refund the 2010 bonds to reduce the interest rate. In addition, the bond ordinance approves amendments to the existing agreements between the city and the BCCA to conform their terms to the proposed defeasance and refunding plan.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it passes. All right, great. Thank you, everybody. Very productive meeting. And thank you for your participation. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.